Hey friends, this is Kristen with Shifting Roots, and today we have a very special guest with us. This is Ashley from Gardening in Canada, and Ashley is a soil scientist. Yes, you heard that right, like a legit soil scientist. She knows what she's talking about. So if you've been watching any of these videos at the acreage over here, you'll know we have terrible soil. We are super struggling, so Ashley is here to help us out. So Ashley, can you just sort of tell us what we're all gonna do today?
Yes, so we're gonna do like a whole view. This would
Okay.
be what someone would do if they were to walk in your garden and help you start to finish with producing better fruits and
Hi,
vegetables
baby.
and better flowers in the garden.
There we go.
Hi!
We have our helper yet again.
So we're going to be looking at the history of the acreage and what we have going on in regards to historical senses, if it's been tilled, hasn't been tilled, and then actually what the parent material is. So that's what Mike's working on us for right now with digging our soil profile in an untouched area. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at the effects of the actual tillage on this garden over here, which in some cases, if you're from my channel, you already know this, but I'm not anti-till. I'm not pro-till. I'm what's best for you and your situation. So in your situation, we talked about using no-till and specifically for controlling the types of weeds you have in your garden. So some weeds are controlled best with tillage, but in your case, you have things like portulaca, you've got thistle, you've got, shepherd's purse, that sort of thing. So those plants we don't want to till with because it's actually going to bring our seed bank up to the top, which will make it worse in this case. So in this case, we're doing no-till, as well as because of the soil type you have. It's very, very dry, it's very, very sandy, but we'll look at that a little bit later. So after we're done that, we're going to then shift and take our dug soil profile in that tilled area, and then we're going to dump some water in it and to do the penetration test, which you said you read in my soil testing book.
I was also wondering if we were going to get the underwear out today, but I think it's not.
That's a good one. Yes, there's an underwear test, but I don't think it would work very well on this right now.
It really wouldn't.
So that would we reserve maybe for like a year or two down the road.
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah, once we get the soil moisture up and stuff, it'll be ultimately better for us there. So we're going to then do a penetration test, see how quickly it drains. I'm suspecting very, very quick.
Super quick.
The only surprise I may expect would be if this was at some point an old body of water and it was lined with clay because it's oddly flat here.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
I don't know if that's because of landscaping and like the property ownership, if they leveled everything out, or if this is natural depression just in this area. Because if we look at the area on a topographic map and just where we're situated right now in Saskatchewan, this is supposed to be more rolly, and it's not.
No, it really isn't.
No.
Like even the house here, it's like built up specifically. Okay.
So I'm thinking something happened maybe, not in our lifetime, but at some point something went on lower down. So we might find a couple little surprises a little deeper down in the soil profile. And then from there, we're going to test the soil texture. And at the end, we're just going to look at recommendations on how to bring the soil back to life. Because for some people, this is the reality. It is sandy soil. If you're in northern Saskatchewan, northern Canada in general, especially in zone 3, we're right on the verge of an old lake bed, which would be the clay that you have in Saskatoon. And then we transition into the shores of that ancient lake, which is obviously more sandy. And then we get into aspen parklands, boreal forest. Again, we get sandier and sandier and sandier the higher up we go. So.
Yeah, and I'm so glad because I get asked this question all the time.
And really?
Yeah, I do, about people with sandy soil. And my answer is usually like, I don't know. I'm going to find out because I am originally from Humboldt, Saskatchewan, which is more clay, and my garden in Saskatoon is more clay. So I don't actually know how to deal with this. So I'm so thankful you're here.
Yeah, we have a lot. We have to deal with this a little bit differently because of that. We need to bring that moisture up, and we need to bring that carbon content up mostly. So yeah, but let's jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go. Help
Jonathan?
So this might just dug the hole, and as you can see from this B-roll, I'm going to show you. You wanted about a toddler and a baby.
Perfect.
Yeah.
But I need one in the field now,
Right? Okay, so any first thoughts?
I'm very impressed with my brain.
Excellent, excellent.
So when we crouch down to look at this, first thing we see is this bright red kind of splotching in there.
Okay.
So that's a great indicator of a high water table in the springtime. So now we're not in the garden right now per se, we're in the orchard. So we're in an area where you're planting trees. So this is untouched land. So this is giving me a good idea of something that we like to call parent material, kind of what was naturally occurring in the area.
Right.
Giving an idea of what we've rototilled and what composition is mixed into what we have over there. So if you can see here, we have our orchard, and this is untouched land. So this hasn't been rototilled, this hasn't been cultivated, and you can see this really dark line in here, and it's pretty much level the whole way around. Now what this bottom layer is telling me is that this is a clay, and it means that this area most likely had water sitting in the region, maybe an old lake bed, maybe an old pond, something of that nature. But this would be our B horizon down here. When we get up into our A horizon, we see these red blotches. Now, they look scored, but that's from the shovel. If we were to clean these off, they kind of go all the way around, and you'll notice that they're in this entire region. I'd expect this entire piece of land to be covered with those red blotchings. Now, what this is telling me, the fact that those red blotches are in our A horizon and we have our B horizon below that, it would indicate that our water level at some point during the year or years has risen up into this A horizon and caused an anaerobic environment. So if we're planting fruit trees in this area, like what you guys are doing here on Shifting Roots, what you're going to want to make sure is that when you're watering, you're really analyzing your soil. If this top layer looks dry, maybe take a probe and actually check, keep a rain gauge in this area and really count your inches when watering, because this is an indication that this area could at times have a high water level and it could turn anaerobic, which may result in really poor growth. So something to keep in mind with this landmass. But after that, we shift up into our A horizon, and we've got this really nice sandy kind of loam. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. And then we've got a very thick O horizon, which is very characteristic of a Chernozemic soil, which is what I would characterize this soil here. This is a very classic grassland Saskatchewan soil. So Chernozemic, and we've got a nice thick O horizon, lots of organic material. We've got an A horizon that's very nicely colored, and then we've got that clay matter at the bottom, which is an A++, and like I said, is something that I kind of was expecting to have. Given how flat this area is, I kind of assumed that maybe something else was going on in the area.
Okay, so now we're back in the garden area, and we're going to look at something that's been tilled. So Ashley knows what she's talking about. You can just take it away.
So Mike's going to dig us a very similar sized hole, and I'm expecting a very homogeneous mixture, top to bottom. We're not going to see any layers. We're not going to see any aggregation in the soil profile, nothing. Not that you have a lot of aggregation anyways, you have really sandy soil, but overall, I'm expecting to see that. Okay. Now, I'm thinking that clay is going to play a bit more of a story in our actual texture test that we're going to do, but in this story it's probably not going to play much of a role at all. Okay. So, but it's still nice to see what happens when we till the land and how it makes it homogeneous. It, you know, wrecks the structure, that sort of thing. Yeah. And yeah.
All right, let's get digging.
Our pile kept on falling in on itself, which is very common of a rototilled soil. It doesn't have aggregation, it doesn't have any structure to it. So the hole will just keep on filling in, and it's very hard to get a soil profile out of something like this. But without me leaning too far into this, because I don't want it to collapse on itself again, we can see right here where our rototill has gotten to. So we can see a color change and even a structure change. So you can see how this slope kept on falling in on itself until about right here. You can even see on the sides here where it's fallen in. This is all rototilled soil.
Oh no.
Yeah, so you can see what it's doing right now. But down here, we have really, really solid structure. And the reason for that solid structure is because this hasn't been rototilled. So it's been allowed to, capture things such as carbohydrates or proteins, fats that help bind the soil together, combined with roots, organic material, water, all that stuff. So there's a little bit more structure to it. Now, the good thing about this soil is that because it is very sandy, we get very, very good water penetration. The bad part about this soil is that, like you were speaking to, it takes a lot of water in the beginning of the season to fill up that battery reserve tank, and then after that it's continual watering almost every day in order to keep that water level topped up, especially when it's very, very hot out like it has been lately. So what we can see, we have our sea horizon way down there. And this plays a bit of a factor into what we're going to do here, because this is pure, what looks like play sand, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what's going on down there. Very, very sandy soil. And this soil, we don't have that clay layer nearly as much or nearly as thick. We're missing kind of that clay region. So I don't know if that's because this was rototilled very deeply at some point, or like maybe with like a tractor, or if something else is going on. Okay, so here we are doing a test on water permeability, and the reason why we do this test is to see how quickly our soil drains water, to give us an idea of how often we need to water. So we can look at the soil texture, we can look at the soil profile to give us an idea of what's involved in the soil, but unfortunately we don't know what's below this, and the only way to tell that without something like a backhoe or something more heavy duty is to actually do a water permeability test. So we simply take our soil pit that we've already dug and then we add water to it. So you can do a 5-gallon pail, an ice cream pail, or in our case we did a whole wheelbarrow. It's kind of up to you how long you want to sit here and wait. I told Mike to grab a whole wheelbarrow because I had a sneaking suspicion that this was going to drain very, very quickly, which it has. So we are doing a time lapse and we will be inserting that in on the video, but you can see where our soil, our water level used to be compared to where it is in what, under 5 minutes you'd say?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
So it's very, very sandy, and we can see air bubbles happening in here, and the air bubbles are actually an indication. You can see them coming up right now. That's an indication of that sea layer and all the air that we had in that sea layer being slowly displaced by the water. So it's forcing the air back up into the water, I guess you could say, profile at this point. So this is an indication of a fast draining soil, which would tell me, based on how quickly this is draining, a daily water is more than necessary. And in some cases you would want to definitely do, in your case specifically here on Shifting Roots, you definitely want to do irrigation, because this is something you need to stay on top of, because if you don't, your garden will not look very good, and it's going to show up in the signs of nutrient deficiencies, wilted plants, poor transplants, you name it. It's going to show up as everything else other than a lack of water, which is exactly what's happening in this case.
Okay, so this is such a relief for me to hear that, like, it's not all my fault.
No.
You know,
No.
and that, like, the problem is fixable, because that's what Mike and I were so worried about.
Oh,
before
yes.
we had you here, is that you would come here and then you would cry a little inside because it was so bad.
You scrap the whole YouTube channel. It's only in
Right?
the city. No.
Right? Like, And we were so worried about that.
It's workable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so thankful. So
Yeah.
what is next after this hole?
So we're going to do a quick soil texture test, and I'm actually going to make you get your hands dirty.
Lovely.
For this, because I want you to get a feel for it.
Okay.
So this next test we're doing, it takes practice. So the
Okay.
first time you do it, your ribbon is going to look drastically different than my ribbon.
I remember this from your book.
That's
yes.
okay. That's okay. So we want to do, it's nice to have someone who knows what they're doing side by side with an amateur. And then maybe you can even walk through your viewers on how to do this and kind of what you're sensing as someone who's never done it.
Perfect.
And like what you're needing to do. Because from my perspective, I'm like, just roll it up, do your
Yes.
ribbon test, it's
Yes,
good to go. So I'm not as
exactly.
good at explaining it after years of doing it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's probably the next step. And then we'll look at how exactly we're going to fix this.
Okay. Excellent. My favorite part of this video.
So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up a handful of soil.
Okay.
And then in your hand, I want you just to quickly take a quick look. You're going to knock some out, but anything that's stick or root or hard organic materials such as like your compost,
Yeah.
we're just going to take that out of the sample.
Like from the untrained eye, it just looks like beach sand. That's slightly darker. Like that's what it looks like to me.
You're almost there.
Okay.
Not quite, but almost.
Okay.
So
All right. I think I'm
you're good? Okay.
Yeah.
So now you'll want a little bit less, probably half of that.
okay.
So you can see how her palm of her hand just has a little bit of soil, but her fingers are bare. So that's exactly what we're going for. And then all I want you to do is make a fist, and we're just gonna dump it in this water.
Oh, great. I should have done it with the other hand.
Okay,
but-
pull it out.
But I didn't put any water in my fist. Is that okay?
So you want it to look kind of like this, not nope. You
No.
want to, yeah, we want it a little bit wet. So just like
Okay.
this, not too wet, just a little bit.
Okay, so you have to loosen your fist
Yes,
a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're using a sprinkler, just really light. Okay, a little bit more.
More? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad you're here with this because, yeah, I would have not.
Yeah,
Oh,
but-
failure.
So yeah, a little bit more.
Okay.
So lift our hands out.
Okay.
And now, see, this is kind of hydrophobic a little bit too. And that's from your city compost, by the way.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
Okay. So now give it a little squeeze. You should have a little bit of water come out.
Sort of better.
There you go.
Thanks. We're just gonna cheat.
So now what we're gonna do, we're not gonna get much out of this, but that's okay. So what we wanna do is we wanna take these 3 fingers, we're gonna lay this straight across. So you'll probably have to angle it like this.
Okay.
And then you're going to take your thumb and you're going to squeeze. And you see how much I squeezed it there?
Yeah.
Just a gentle pinch.
Okay.
And then you're gonna move your way down and just another little gentle pinch. And then we're gonna move down, gentle
I
pinch.
feel like this is gonna fall out.
Yeah, it might. There you go.
Okay.
So that's all you got. So this right here, if you were to remove this, this is your ribbon. That's all you
Okay.
get.
Oh.
So that is a sandy soil.
okay.
This is a sandy loam soil. So this is half an inch.
Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah.
So yeah. So this is definitely, our hypothesis is correct.
So let's just recap here. We tested the soil both in a pristine area and a non-tilled area, and now is my favorite part where Ashley tells me
How to
fix it. So, what do we do,
The
Osage
solution.
and Wise One?
We light a fire, no, and burn it all down. No.
Although I was half expecting this.
No. This is workable. We can work
Yeah.
with this. So it's not a pure sand. It is a sandy loam. So if we look at
Good,
a
good.
textural triangle, we can work within this. It has some clay, it has some silt, and it has some sand in it. It drains really quickly, but it doesn't drain super fast. So if we look at our penetration test, we still have water in there, which is a good sign. That means our battery is fillable.
Yes.
It's not a bottomless pit, right?
Yeah.
So, so our solution to this is irrigation or some sort of hustle when it comes to watering.
I would much rather irrigate.
Yeah.
So I think, when you're planning out your expenditures for your property, like that will be next year's first
Yes.
priority.
Yes. So this year, when we want to get stuff off, we want to make sure we're mulching
Yes.
and that we are watering on a very regular basis,
Okay.
just trying to keep that soil moisture up and controlled. Then we're not going to till anymore.
Yep.
And it's not because I'm anti-till, it's because the solution for you is no-till,
Yep.
based on your soil structure, but then also the types of weeds you have.
Yes.
The types of weeds you have are going to make this worse if we rototill, because we are going to bring up the seed bank.
Yes.
And so this is very common. Seeds will, the perfect place for a seed to hide, just like a perfect place for a bulb to hide,
Yes.
is in the soil.
Do you have a video on your channel like specifically about that for any of my viewers who are maybe wondering if like no-till is better or till is better for their situation?
So I do have some on no-till and the issues with it, or the concerns with it, but I don't have one necessarily on tilling and when the situation should arise, but I can definitely
I will link to that in the comments.
Yeah, so that's a very valuable video idea for that sense. So that's our number one, just to get through this year.
Okay.
And then the future plan, so overall what we're going to do over the next however many years, decades, whatever the case is we are going to lay on organic material like nobody's business.
Yes. We are hoping to get chickens and like do a chicken tractor over.
Yes.
So, and all the leaves.
Yes.
We're going to get put on this winter is the idea.
All of them.
Yeah.
So we're literally going to build it up, and it's going to be almost like a Ruth Stout method.
Right.
Borderline deep
Yeah.
mulch type scenario, because that's kind of all we have to work with here.
Okay.
We don't have to do raised beds. We don't have to do anything drastic. Sometimes with clay soils or super sandy soils, our only way out is to go up.
Yeah.
This isn't the case here.
I'm really thankful because that would be so expensive.
It would be. It
Like,
would be so expensive.
I know what I've spent in the city on raised beds, and that's just like the city and not a lot of raised beds.
Yeah, and so out here it would be drastically
It'd
different.
be awful.
Yeah, so we don't have that. So we need to increase our carbon content. We need to increase our moisture. Once we do those two things, we're going to increase our microbial activity, our earthworm activity. You're saying there's not a lot out here.
Yeah.
You're not going to have any because of the lack
Right.
of moisture. And the nice thing about this is that when you do use compost manures, bagged or even just from the city, there is worms, eggs in that.
Oh, I did not know.
So with my raised beds and the way I've cared for mine, they're about 7 years now, no-till, very identical soil to this actually. And so I've been using compost manures. Humic acid is a really good thing for this garden as well. And I've been building it up over time. And this year I was digging around and I have worms.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's on a raised bed on top of concrete.
Okay, that's amazing.
So they came from the compost, they came from the manure, they came from some sort of input. So just because this whole area is probably devoid of earthworm activity does not mean that this area has to be.
Oh, I'm so thankful.
So it's doable. We can make this work. So high moisture, carbon content, and just literally pile it on. Some other things you may want to think about for aggregation, because you know how your soil cuts on falling in on that pit? So that's a sign we don't have aggregation, which will limit our ability for our roots to penetrate, can cause, root rot in some cases, or just even just structure like hydrology, how the water moves through the profile. You may want to think of using things like lime or gypsum to help with that. And there's other odd things you can do, like kitty litter, for example, just to help increase that cation exchange capacity and just the moisture holding properties of the soil. So
okay, perfect.
You're good.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashley, for coming to Shifting Roots. And if you aren't a subscriber of Ashley's channel, you need to head over right this second and go to Gardening in Canada. That's where she is on YouTube. She is also on Instagram, same handle there. And you have your blog. Is it
gardeningcanada.net?
.net. Okay, fantastic. Anywhere else on the interwebs?
Facebook, TikTok, you name it, everywhere.
I'm on TikTok, but like...
I'm horrible at it, but you can come.
It's been a very valuable 20 minutes. So as always, if you found this content helpful, if you are in zone 3 or another cold climate, short gardening season, definitely want to hit that subscribe button, notification bell, you know the drill. And every single day I show up on Instagram and Facebook showing you exactly what I'm doing in this garden and my one in the city in real time. So we'll see you next time, friends. Bye-bye.
Please, you do this every time.
Okay. So
What are we talking about? Oh my god.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.